talking about, in the context of the curse, this curse is talking about idolatry. That any generation that continues in the idolatry of their forefathers, and idolatry it could be a number of things. There are a number of things we practice in the contemporary church that are idolatry, but we don't want to admit to ourselves that it's idolatry because it doesn't look just like it does in the Old Testament. But in the eyes of God, if it's robbing him of his glory or giving glory to something other than God, it's still idolatry. And so what happens is there is a curse of the law that is a promise upon those generations who hate God in that way. And it's similar to what the Bible says when it says, he who spareth the rod hateth the child. We always say spoil the child, but it really says hateth the child. Because biblically, hatred is about what you are unwilling to do. And so hatred, love is about what you do, is action. Hatred is about what you're unwilling to do. So when it's talking about hating God, is when you're unwilling to give God his honor, and you're giving his honor to someone else. That's idolatry. So when you give God's honor to something else and not give it to God, that's idolatry. All right? So what we're saying is that the curse will be upon succeeding generations who not only do it, but teach their children to hate God. So you know, they get mad at me, but you don't teach your children, you don't sit down. I'm just saying, for example, we teach our children to follow all kinds of really idolatrous things. We develop legacies of things that we just go all out in and worship. You see people in pageants. You see people in debutantes. You see men with children in sports. You know, we don't like to talk about it, but fraternities, sororities, we talk about legacies, all this kind of stuff that we do and from childhood. But the same people who do that don't teach the knowledge of God or the love of God to their own children. And in the eyes of God, that's idolatry. We don't want to look at it in a contemporary sense, but the love and honor that God should be giving, you're giving to something else. So what happens is you're now creating a culture of idolatry in your family. That if those children make the same choices you make, then they will bring curses upon themselves. Not because the sin has so perpetuated, but the conditioning has, that they've been so conditioned to make the same bad choices as their parents. So as a result, it brings the negative consequence. Now, the reverse of that is in the very next verse, where it says, are y'all listening? It says this, for I, the Lord your God, am jealous. And it says this, it says, verse 6, it says, but showing mercy to thousands, to those who love me and keep my commandments. So it's saying right now, you see it now, it's a choice. Because they say, if you hate me, then you'll be cursed. But if you love me and keep my commandments, well, that's a choice. It's a choice to keep the commandments of God. Then he says, I'll show mercy to thousands upon thousands. So we're saying we're not really dealing with generational curses as much as we are dealing with generational choices. Now, I want to show you this from a scriptural context and a pattern where it bears itself out.